Alright, so welcome to the 2019 Unseen O-level poetry question. So as usual, I'm going to go through my guide on how to attempt this. First of all, this is actually quite a nice poem about a well, right? And it's actually deceptively simple in my opinion because it's a narrative form, right? Uh, kind of like a short story, which might uh, which is usually quite easy for people to get. However, um, based on the devices used, it can actually be quite difficult. Anyway, I'm going to try a new style this time, which is I'm going to write down all my notes on the left rather than trying to use my handwriting so that hopefully it's easier for you to understand. Yeah. So let's get down to it. As usual, always look at the two questions to figure out which is the head and heart question. For those who are new, by head and heart, I'm referring to which question usually requires you to focus on discussing about your feelings or your impressions. And the head question is usually those that require you to discuss literary techniques and devices instead. I think it's pretty clear over here, although I must mention that this is the first time I see them using for oops dramatic for the hard question. Alright? So dramatic is about causing a sense of fear, usually something linked to danger or uncertainty. Like think about your favorite dramatic movie when there's a sudden reveal, right? Usually it's because it affects someone's life in a very powerful way. Like their life is really altered, like marriage, death. So moving on to the question, as you can see, I've identified three possible answers to the heart question or dramatic, and I'm going to explain why. Okay, so first of all, I talk about how the sense of tension or fear. You can see this clearly from how the rope becomes a noose, right, around my waist. The choice of words used to describe this alone is quite frightening because a noose is usually used in executions, and that's something that you should mention what a noose is usually used for. Okay. Next, the fact that a father is lowering him into the darkness, right, when a father is supposed to protect his child, right, would of course create a sense of fear because you're wondering why on earth is the father lowering his son into darkness. Lower because you're afraid that he's being lowered into a grave. The idea that this image connotes a grave, right? Whether the son is going to die or go into some kind of danger. Alright, so these two should be enough. Next, the idea of death. First of all, we talk about fear, then darkness, then earth. Right, so now we're actually quite certain that he is being lowered into the ground, or even if you look at the title, the well. Right, so it makes you wonder if the father is trying to kill his son. The word rot as well is important because, well, of course, what rots? Dead bodies, right? So it gives you a sense of death, that the son is going to join those who are already dead or get buried. And this is further confirmed or reinforced, or maybe you can use the term emphasize, when he talks about how he swung and struck his head, right? So there's some form of injury, which of course could kill him. He might not survive the journey down. I guess if you want to make it more dramatic, you can talk about this descent down the well into the earth as a form of entering hell, as a journey towards hell, which could make it more dramatic. A third idea, and remember I've always mentioned that the third is usually a bonus idea, is you could mention the idea of cruelty or suffering, right? You could mention this from the phrases blood spiking his mouth with iron. I find it quite interesting because it's not just about blood but spike, right, which emphasizes the physical injury that he suffered, and iron because there's two meanings. Literally it's the taste, but figuratively it's the feeling or it's the object which hit him, right? The feeling of an object hitting him, okay? And the choice of words, or what my friend likes to call diction, with his father dropping him, which shows that the father is not letting him go down into the well very smoothly, but with a sense of hurry, to the extent that he feels like he's falling down very quickly, right? And if indeed he falls, he might get grievously hurt or injured, right? The sense that's on purpose as well makes us conclude that the father is either being cruel, torturing, or causing him to suffer. Right. Okay, moving on to the next part. So we are looking to this keyword powerfully convey the boy's feelings and sensations. Right, not to be worried. It's still about using words and imagery. Oh, so I forgot to mention. Yeah, bear in mind that it's lines 1 to 12. So of course, when you first look at this poem, you should draw your line so that you don't accidentally quote extra, okay, or beyond it. So moving forward, powerfully convey, you still need to look at words and imagery, but what I like to do is, as I'm answering the question, I always like to emphasize the word powerfully, right? And perhaps why it's vivid, as we have done in other questions. So of course, you, besides mentioning the technique, which is what you should be emphasizing, you need to emphasize you need to mention the feeling that's being conveyed as well. So first of all, I'm going to look at the feeling of shock by talking about how the narrative device of in media res is being used. Now, in media res is Latin for starting in the middle, right? And I think it's pretty clear here how he starts in the middle of the story without explanation, by immediately going into how my father cinched the rope, lowering him into the darkness, without explaining the context or the purpose for doing so. This is a bit hard to quote because it's always hard to quote whenever you're talking about how people are doing things without explaining, since you can't quote that. But I'm sure you can just mention the basics of the story about how they're lowering into the darkness without any rhyme or reason. You could even mention you get some sense of danger with swinging and striking his head, again without any explanation of the task that they are being able to do until much later in the 4th or 5th stanza. In this part, you can actually quote this to show that the purpose is right at the end rather at the beginning. Alright, so starting in the middle of the story without explanation, that's one technique. Second, you can talk about enjambment, right, which is a very fancy term for line breaking. How it links from here to here, and likewise from here to here. Okay? What does this technique usually do? It forces the two things. One, it creates a sense of breathlessness because the reader doesn't stop, right? Also creates a sense of connectedness with the next stanza. So combine the idea of combining these two ideas, that of going on to the next without stopping. Basically, whenever there's an enjambment or line breaking device being used, it forces the reader to go on and on at a relentless or hurried pace to try and figure out what goes on. So you can say powerfully convey enjambment or line breaking powerfully conveys the boy's feelings by forcing the reader to breathlessly read the next line without stopping, creating a sense of urgency or hurry to find out what's next, or perhaps a sense of anxiety as the reader hurriedly reads on. Okay, so you should, besides pointing out there's a line break, you should also notice what's being broken, right? So first one, taste my fear. Alright, not only are we forced to read very quickly the next part about what he's tasting, which would be unusual in the darkness, but we are also given something unexpected, the idea of fear, because you can't usually taste fear. So by both enjambment and diction, that of him tasting fear, we are treated to a very powerful imagery of fear in the boy, uh, because it's so strong to the extent that he doesn't just sense it, but he actually tastes it in his mouth. Looking on to the another enjambment, you can see, and at that moment got another, then blood. Right, this part, the use of punctuation as well. How the enjambment here comes in the form of, and at that moment got another, right? So even though we go to the next line, we are still not shown what is it that he gets. Alright, it's still a mystery to us, which of course creates fear. I mean, a lot of this feeling that you mentioned should be related to fear, right? Then blood, right? The colon there creates a dramatic pause as we figure out what that then is supposed to refer to, or what comes next. And then following up with blood, of course, even heightens or dramatizes, or you can call it emphasizes our worry, our concern for the boy. So there's three things here. We don't know what happens next. At that moment got another. Then there's a dramatic pause. And third, we are shown blood, which of course makes us worry about the boy's life and safety. So enjambment line breaking, I hope that this way of note taking helps. Okay, moving on. Last but not least, we have a powerful twist or shocking revelation. Again, another device, which is kind of related to the in media res, as I mentioned, because not just the fact that his mission is only revealed at the end, but his mission is still revealed in parts. Because we suddenly see red fur, which we are wondering, what is it about, what is it for? When he says, I hug to my chest, we are still confused about why he's doing that. And then from the choice of words, right? Even though the daddy hauled the wet rope, and it's supposed to be safety, bringing the boy back up to safety, we are led to wonder, why is the boy gagging? Because it shows that, I don't know, he's either drowning, he's choking. We still think that he's in danger. It's only very much at the very end, when they say my neighbor's missing dog, that we realize, oh, what the mission is about. And how we suddenly go from death to light, hands, then breath. Right? It's also another revelation, another twist, because at first the dog is dead, but with light, hands, and breath, we are given three images very quickly. And this is something you must note. Three rapid images, light, hands, breath, right, which we are supposed to understand means the boy is led up to the surface, their hands pressing the dog's chest so that the dog can breathe, and the dog is brought back to life. The sudden quickness makes it a very sudden, the quickness of the imagery makes it a very sudden twist. And of course the twist is the dog from death to breath. And not only that, the revelation of the boy's mission from lowering, from seemingly being abandoned to actually performing a rescue. These three things you should mention as your explanation in the technique of powerful twist or shocking revelation. Last but not least, right, what happens if you are not familiar with any of these terms, in media res, enjambment, or shocking revelation? Right, it's simple. Use the terms diction or imagery of death, injury, relief, recovery over here. Okay, so what kind of diction can you use? First of all, the diction will be kind of related to part 1, I suppose. You can mention the diction of death, or the diction of, so you definitely have death here, which is a very powerful feeling, right? Because it emphasizes the boy's worry. Of course, you realize it's not that fantastic because there's a bit of repetition with part 1. But, this is an emergency case scenario. What else can you use? You can still mention the diction of then light, then hands, then breath, and how it's very quick. You might not be familiar with enjambment line breaking, but you can say the punctuation, right? Or how the lines suddenly lead to the next stanza. You can also mention how the imagery of death leads to imagery of life, okay, which is still here. Note that the ideas are still similar. I'm just showing you how you can rephrase it differently, either in terms of diction or imagery. Alright, that's about what I have for now. I hope this method is more useful to you. Let me know. Otherwise, all the best for your O-levels.